Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. And today we have a gentleman by way of the Bay Area, Matthew Stern. Matthew, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Thanks for having me on. Great to see you.
Okay, so everybody, this is what's up with this guy. This guy's a CEO. He's a marketing growth expert. He's a self-made entrepreneur. He's a dad, and he has a great story. So we're going to jump right into that, Matt.
Thank you.
What is your story?
Oh, my story. It depends where you want to start, but I really feel my story starts at 17. Yeah. Well, I think it starts with two amazing parents that love me and raised me with a ton of confidence and belief in myself, which, I hope I fulfill for my daughter now. But at 17, unfortunately, we lost everything as a family. And, after being raised for 17 years, really, I'd say having everything that you could ever want in a childhood, all of that from like a physical goods perspective, right? From like a lifestyle perspective was all taken away. My dad lost everything and we were without a home and anywhere kind of to turn. And that was really the gut check moment for me in my life. I had to make a decision in that moment to rise to the occasion or let the situation bury me. While I watched my friends go off to college and live that life and that vision that kind of we all had growing up in middle class America. I was living in a 400 square foot pool house with my mom, and that was, like I said, where it all began for me. I made a decision in that moment to go all in on myself. I started working construction. I started going to city college, and from that point forward, was just committed to doing it all the best I could do it, and that meant getting a 4.0 in school, working my ass off whenever I wasn't in school to make money for my family, providing for myself and my mom. And that's been now, gosh, doing the math, like 26 years, which is wild from that moment to today. For the last 20 years, I've been building businesses from the ground up using my skill set in digital marketing to grow businesses from 0 to 100. And I've done that across a lot of different industries. I have really used the same framework from the first business that I started till today, operating a 8-figure plus telehealth business as I do today, which is to own the lifetime value of a customer from the first time they see an ad online to the last time they interact with that brand, and being able to optimize that customer experience to maximize the value for the patient or for the customer and for the business. And so, yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Okay. Jose, are you there, buddy? Or did you jump off? I know you jumped off, but can you hear? Okay, how's that going? Because Matthew was very blurry to me okay.
Should I take the blur off the camera? Is that it? Or am I literally like,
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, I'm just going to roll with
was
Matt.
that kind of everything you were thinking? Do you want me to take that any other direction?
No, here's how I work. I got no agenda. Zero. I have zero
Let it
agenda.
flow.
Gonna
Nice.
let it flow. I'm not grading you. I'm not judging you. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just going to see where it goes. And I'm going to run with it because that makes the best story and makes the best show. And it's more fun for both of us.
Perfect.
So how old, you said you have a daughter?
I do. She just turned 5.
5 years old. Okay. You going to have any more kids? Do you know?
It's not out of the question.
Possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
So what lesson did you learn at 17 that probably was just an iceberg of the learning that you on that topic, whatever it was, that you know now that you're going to pass on to your daughter? And so, like, as a dad, one of our primary roles is to make sure that our kids at least are aware of the stupid things we did or are aware of the adversity that is overcomable, even though it doesn't look like it. All those types of life lessons. What's that life lesson you're going to pass on to your daughter?
First thing that came to my mind is that you really separate yourself through hard work and that you can overcome anything by consistently showing up. That's what I've learned more than anything, I think, through that and beyond, is that regardless of circumstance, you ultimately control the outcome that you want to see in the world and in your life. So by showing up every day, bringing your best self and working your butt off, anything is possible.
Okay, so I'm going to bounce around on you. I heard a rumor about you that you like to play golf.
Yeah.
So what's your handicap in golf?
I'm a 6 index.
Goodness, you play too much golf.
Right now, I'm not playing enough. It's too rainy, but yeah.
Okay, so what is your perspective on golf as a metaphor for life and, and learning about people?
Yeah, it is the exposure point for any individual that you want to know how they show up in their life. Spend 4 or 5 hours with them on the golf course, and I think it is the perfect metaphor for life. You see the way people handle adversity on every single shot, and it really exposes who you are at your core. You see if they cut corners, if they take time off, if they're, really chatty and really fun and engaging, if they uplift other people or they're reclusive and they withdraw. It really can show you everything that you want to know about someone and how they show up in their everyday life. And that's a big part of what I love about the game. It's been a big growth experiment for me through my life because I was the young kid throwing clubs and getting upset all the time. And like I was awful. And I see some of that come out in my daughter now as we're starting to play games and compete. And I'm like, wow, I was the worst. And so it has been a big growth for me over the last, I'd say 5, 6 years. I've really learned to, especially since having my daughter, I learned to love the game and love the 4 or 5 hours that you're out there in that special time because it is just blessed time. So if I'm not enjoying it, I'm really like, I'm much more hard on myself around the enjoyment of the game than I am around the score at this point. And that has ultimately resulted in better scores, right? As you let go of the result, it's another like big life one, right? As you let go of the result and you just are present in the moment and you show up as the best version of yourself, the score comes down too.
Okay, so how do you handle a situation where you're on a golf course with a potential business partner? You're planning on doing business with this guy. You're going to invest time, money, and energy into this person and who he represents or she represents. And they're still MFing this and throwing their clubs there and acting like they've never hit a bad shot before. And that we all hit bad shots. So when that bad shot shows up, they show up. That's when they show up.
Yeah.
They act like they've never done it before. And they do it every time. Like, what are they thinking? Especially if they're like a, 18 handicapper.
Yeah.
What do you do with those kind of people?
That's a tough one. I'm out. I think I'm out on like partnership, business. Like that's not a person that I'm going to closely align myself with.
Okay. So what if it was the best opportunity for your business, for your future, but for that situation on the golf course, and you find out later that that person got served with divorce papers the morning of you playing golf, but they didn't tell you at golf. What happens if you found out somebody close to them passed away? All these kind of things that can happen that can cause people to rock their world.
Yeah.
And golf is where you're vulnerable and it shows up. So how do you do a little bit more due diligence to find out who they really are and why they responded the way they responded?
That's such a good challenge, Craig. I think my biggest strength is empathy. I think emotional intelligence and empathy. I would think there's some type of a discussion during the 4 or 5 hours that we're spending together of like checking in on what's going on in that moment. I don't think I would just go through those 4 or 5 hours with them hemming and hawing and having a terrible time and allow that to just be our experience together. So I would hope I would uncover some of that in the moment. But if it came out, I have a huge heart for that. So, it would come down to us spending time together, real time together outside of that environment and checking in on like, is this a type of partnership that we can come together on and that we can find common ground on that, that was just in the moment and how, they're going through it. And I have a ton of empathy for that. Losing people is the hardest thing that we have to go through in this life. And I can imagine divorce is up there too, of the two ones that you mentioned. But yeah, I have a huge heart for that.
Okay. So as a dad and as a guy that loves golf and a guy that's very, successful in business, what did you have to give up to have space and time for your daughter?
I gave up a consistent morning routine. That was a big one. I had to let go of that pretty early. I think I let go also of a lot of my self-importance. That was a big one in the first year of having a daughter. That I just the reality that you're not the most important person anymore in your life is a big transformative thing that I had to go through that I don't think enough dads actually give credit to, that you're going through this transition. I'm always of the mindset that the moms have it by far harder than we do in every single way. So I'm never comparing like the dad hard to the mom hard because mom hard is so much harder. But dads go through a huge transition as well in identity. And that was a big one for me that I gave up. And more practically is the morning routine. I don't book meetings before 9:30, and that's hard being an entrepreneur and like being called on in every way for my schedule's requirements. And I just am a hard no on those mornings. And I've been able to just fully lean in. Like my daughter and I at 8 o'clock this morning, we were on the tennis court before school and playing tennis together. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Well, and 9:30 in the morning is lunchtime in New York, so East Coast time. So if you do business across the country, that gives you half a day to catch them before they hit the bars at, 5 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, it's totally true. And I do business with people in Europe too. Often I'm up at 10 o'clock at night and Europe's waking up and we're doing business from 10 to 11 o'clock at night. And that's just my reality. Or I'm up at 5:30 and I'm working on the East Coast folks before she's out of bed. So I do navigate it that way. But that morning stretch from like 6:30 to 9:30 is precious.
That's awesome. Okay, let's pretend there's someone out there that is listening that is curious about how you could help them and their business grow. And your pitch would be what?
I'm very specific to industry and business, but in general, my I think superpower in business is being able to look at an industry and reverse engineer what the top companies in that space are doing successfully. And how do you successfully apply that to your industry and your business? So, looking at business models, looking at price points, looking at customer support, looking at all the little pieces that they do very well that you need to then go model yourself after. I think, you're never trying to, everything's been done in some way or another. You may have some unique spin on it, you may have a unique entry point into a market, but the reality is like, it's some iteration of another business model that's been done before. So I'm a big proponent of looking what other people have done and replicating that and trying to make tweaks and make it your own and make it better.
Well, I agree with you. Nothing's new under the sun. Everybody just packages it differently, calls it something different. It's almost like they put it, it's almost like kernels in a popcorn popper, they're just flying all over the place. But at the end of when it's finished, it's still just popcorn.
Well said.
And
Yeah.
so I think all business is about, you know, doing what you say you're going to do, not over promising, having a higher standard than everybody else. If you look in sports, the athletes that go the farthest are not always the ones with they all have God given ability, but the one that has the elite of the elite athleticism isn't the one that goes the farthest. It's the one that has the highest standard.
Uh, yep, you see it across the board. I've always enamored, like, I didn't have a huge appreciation for Kobe Bryant and his life on this earth, and now have an unbelievable amount of appreciation for him as an athlete and a father now, today, looking back on his life because of that. I think as a Warriors fan, it was hard to love anyone in LA as a Bay Area guy, right? Like, just could not root for the Lakers, had to root against the Lakers. And so didn't appreciate his commitment and his excellence and his next level dedication to the game and to his family. And now I see it in just such a clear light that that's what separated him in every way.
What have you learned about him that's impressed you that is something that you've adopted in your repertoire? Because when you see somebody like that do it, because the best of the best don't always show you what's going on behind the curtain. They don't tell you how the sausage is made. They just make it look easy.
Yeah.
Okay. And, when Kobe's, up at 4 a.m. shooting baskets when everyone else is sleeping. And when he's shooting 100 shots after a game and everybody else is partying, his work ethic was second to none.
Yeah. And I don't put myself on that level. I have a huge appreciation for it and respect for the people who can do it at 4 a.m. like that. He also approaches business life that way. If he was going into a meeting in a big day, he was also there at 4 a.m. in the office and prepared. And he approached every part of his life that way. And I imagine his relationships with his daughters as well, just like a next level of commitment. I think for me, it is that daily commitment. I definitely have a mentality of like every day I'm preparing myself mentally and physically to attack the day to the best of my ability, right? To bring my best self to my business, to my family, to my friends, to my life. And that requires a level of preparation, both at night and in the morning. And I do that, but there is another level to it. And the Tiger Woods, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans were 0.1% of us that could do that every single day. And I think they're wired different than most people. I don't put myself on that level at all, but I hope I draw some of that from them. Just that, like, I know I need to show up as the best version of myself every day to have a shot at separating myself and being successful.
So let's go back. How old were you when your father basically lost everything?
I was
17?
17 when he lost everything, and it's been actually 14 years since he passed away.
Okay, so let's go back to when you were 17. What year was that approximately?
You're asking me to do math on the spot here,
I
Craig.
know, bro. I know.
We're in what year now? We're in 2026. So it was about 26 years ago.
Okay, so
Two
1999 to 2000.
it was two yeah, and I should know that because I graduated from high school in 2001, and it was right before my high school graduation. Yeah, it's been about 25 years.
Okay, so we just hit a new millennial. You're supposed to be like on top of the world when you're that age. Girls, cars, activities, whatever it might be. What was the thing that hurt you the most with your friend group? What were you embarrassed about? And I'm asking you to go to that place in your mind where you were like, you didn't want to tell people. You didn't want to tell people the truth because you didn't want them to know what you were really doing or going through, or your dad did, or whatever the case may be. What was that?
It's an interesting question. No one's ever asked me that. I think there were actually moments before that when I was even younger, around 13, 14, that my dad almost went to jail for tax fraud, which was probably an early signal that he wasn't doing very well in managing our financial life. But at that point, he wore an ankle bracelet, and the state of California, almost sent him to jail for tax fraud. That was the most embarrassing, I think, because he couldn't go certain places or do certain things. It was also in the news, and so certain kids would make fun of me and bring it up because their parents had told them about it. They had seen it in the paper, and that was a much harder time. I think at 17, I had such an amazing group of friends and brothers around me, and I had such a belief in myself that I never really was ashamed of what happened in that moment. I think I was really committed to being in it. My dad was my biggest fan. And so even through all of that, I never had a lot of anger towards him. I never had a lot of like resentment. I always felt really well supported. Um, and just felt like I had to take it on. It was never an option. I'm kind of wired in that way, like very, it's very dualistic in my mind. Like you're either in or you're out. And for me, there's no other option. Like I'm in and I'm taking it on every single day. And that was always in there. And I think that's a credit to my dad and a credit to my mom for raising me that way, that I had that mentality.
So it sounds like to me you bifurcated who your dad was from what he did. You separated who he was as a man, as a father, and you didn't group it all together like, oh, he's a failure because he made some dumb decisions or whatever the case may be. It's almost like you protected your father's like person from what he did, which is very rare because most people throw out they throw everything out together. And then they have to find a way through their life to learn that their father wasn't as bad as what he did.
Yeah.
And he actually was supportive and he was, a very positive influence in a lot of ways. Just one thing was his Achilles heel that took him down. And so that's my story. My story is my dad did some dumb things. So I just assumed he was, I threw it all at him. And I had to reverse engineer over a couple decades that, hey, he was a good dude. He really was a good dude, but he made some dumb decisions. And so it sounds like you didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, growing up and having a family gives you a ton of perspective on the pressure that sounds like your father faced, that my father faced, and probably a huge lack of support that they had around their mental health or a place that they could, properly vent that and go through their own growth journey. I feel like our father's generations were really held down in that way where you're like wasn't man enough. You weren't man enough if you had these feelings and you had these emotions and you had to just man up and gut it out and deal with it and be tough and like that's not how you showed toughness. So yeah, a ton of empathy for our dads, right? And what they went through at that point. I just went to the foundation in my mind of like, he missed 2 baseball games in my entire life. I played every sport you could ever imagine. He was always there, always. He missed 2 games for one business trip. And that's amazing, right? Like he was by far my biggest fan. And so, yeah, he screwed up. And yeah, that was awful. And it was a terrible thing to go through. And it was really a scary time. But at the core, he loved me more than anything in the entire world. He gave me every opportunity. I was totally spoiled growing up. I like had it amazing for those 17 years. Yeah, I just always, you're right. I was able to differentiate between what he did versus the man that he was in his core and how much he loved me. And I think then as I grew up and learned more about mental health and I actually saw him go through a lot of like bouts with bipolar, it actually explained a lot of his behavior and made sense about a lot of his behavior to me. So as I've grown up and studied that more and more, I've grown even more empathetic to what he was going through and the lack of support that he had around him. And, you know, that's, what I hope to give back in some ways to guys like that and guys like us is that, I guess, empathy that there are solutions, that it's actually amazing to talk to people. And I'm fortunate to have still those like same group of buddies that are like my brothers that I feel like I can call on a dime and be very open and be very, I guess, exposed with and not feel like I'm going to be judged. And, I would love for at some point to be that kind of coach for other people too. Guys that are going through that need someone who's just zero judgment, full empathy, and full support.
Okay, you mentioned that you gave up some of your morning routine to make room for your new addition, your daughter.
Yeah.
What do you see? What did you not give up in your morning routine? Because we talked off air just for a second, but it's like every day's a new day, and what happened before doesn't matter. And so the morning routine is your reset time. It gives you the opportunity to go, hey, today's whatever day it is, yesterday's over and tomorrow's not here yet. And for me, I've been developing a morning routine for probably the last 10, 12 years that I can't not do because and I'm an empty nester. So I'm in a different generation than you, but it's like, I got to have mine. So I'm just curious what you gave up that maybe you were doing thinking you needed to do it, but you don't really need to do it. Or is there something that you've given up that you got to find a way to give up something else because you got to get back to doing it?
I am excited for the day where I get back to your mentality of like, I got it every day and I can commit to that time. I've gotten actually a lot of criticism from the 4 a.m. guys that like there is no excuse that you should just get up at 4 a.m. and have that window and do your thing. That's not me. So I've grown a lot of empathy for myself and a lot of acceptance that every day is going to be a little bit different, just depending on did we sleep last night? Did we not sleep? Do we have my wife at home supporting me in the morning or is she off at work? Like every day is different. So I think the things that I've really tried to hang on to are like every evening I go and do pretty much every evening, I'm doing a stretching and like working on my hip strength and mobility and thinking about my golf game. And working on that kind of stuff at night and then doing some form of meditation to just like close out the day and go to bed with a clear head. That's something that I try to work on every single night. And then in the mornings, it's similar. If I've like gotten a good night's sleep and I'm actually up at 5:30 and I'm up ahead of her and I have a real like 45-minute window, I go into just really basic 20 minutes of breath work, some meditation, and then probably some push-ups. Like I'll just max out push-ups and do some type of body movement like that. There's some like, yeah, just general movement, like getting the blood flowing, bouncing around. I'm feeling like athletic, and that's been great for me. And that again, acceptance that 20, 30 minutes is enough to check that box for me that like I did it, I got it, I'm ready to take on the day. And then hopefully there is time because I am an entrepreneur. I create my own schedule. There is time in the day then to like get an hour in and go do a hard workout and really like get after it. But it's just not that morning window that's realistic for me.
Okay, so you're in the Bay Area. Palo Alto's probably not too far away. If you were a professor of business in the MBA program at Stanford, what class would you teach? And what is the number one principle that you would make sure that your students were familiar with and taught?
Be one of two topics for me. I think on the like practical business side, I'd be a great mentor and teacher for people looking to learn growth strategies in business. How do you build a business from zero to something? Call it like the Peter Thiel mindset, right? How do you get something literally from zero to reality and to scale? And what are those growth strategies that you employ? And then I think a part of that actually plays on pretty well. I was going to say it's a separate topic, but a part of that plays into leadership. How do you show up as a leader for that team that you're going to take from 0 to 1? Because it's a very different type of leader that takes a company from 0 to 1 than takes a company from 1 to 1,000. And I think I've always been in that 0 to 1 phase of business. And then we get a business to scale and another leader is probably more fit to like take it public or take it to that next stage or whatever stage of growth it needs to go to next to really realize the full potential of that business. And I think I'm excellent in that 0 to 1 phase where it really takes empathetic leadership that's attached to every single person and cares deeply about every single person that's in the organization and is willing to listen, is willing to care, and is willing to wear many hats and live in the grind of that business every single day.
Be a little more expansive on that. Going from 0 to 1, what are the things that people have to do to go from 0 to 1? Because you don't have any momentum when you're at 0. It's not like going from 9 to 10 or 68 to 69. You're starting at 0. You got no momentum. What do people not realize that they got to do to get the momentum going to get from 0 to 1?
You have to have incredible belief in yourself, incredible belief in yourself, and a reason why you're showing up every day that goes beyond money, that goes beyond success. You have to have something that's driving you that when things get hard, because in every single business they do, I don't care how well prepared you are, how great of a market you're in, it doesn't matter. Every single time you get in that 3 to 6 month window and things start getting sideways and get really hard, and you have to have another reason why you're going forward. And that's what I've seen the guys that I've coached and friends that I've helped through that stage. That's what I've seen them connect to. And I know really when I talk to someone right away, I'll know within the first meeting of talking to someone whether they have a shot to really do it because they will connect to that why really quickly. And the guys that I've coached that have been the why is I've been working corporate for 20 years and I've maxed out and I have 3 kids at home and I'm traveling all over the country and I'm not here for them and I don't want to live this life. I don't want to be living this life in 10 years when these kids grow up and I'm still all over the country and I've missed that piece of my life. If you can connect really truly to something like that, you won't lose. You will do whatever it takes to win. And that's literally what it takes.
What are 2 or 3 fundamental whys that most men connect to?
Kids, I think, is one that you want your kids to live a better life than you did. You want them to have more opportunity. I think that's a big one for a lot of guys in my stage of life. I'd say some people also have a desire to prove themselves either to someone that's done them wrong or a situation that's told them they were less than. And they use that as like the chip on their shoulder to drive forward and drive through anything that they're never going to let anyone tell them they can't accomplish it. And they have just such a finite sense of themselves and like their ability, their like belief in themselves that they're going to go prove it despite anyone. I think of
Pause
another.
just for a second.
Yeah.
Pause
Yeah. Yeah.
just. You mentioned a positive motivator and you mentioned a negative one. Which one has more power, more legs, more effectiveness? The one where you want to get something, provide something that you didn't have, provide more than what you got, spend more time with your kids? Or do you find that the teacher, the coach, the professor, the friend, the ex-wife, whoever it might have been, didn't believe in them, told them they weren't good enough, told them they couldn't do it, told them they were stupid for even thinking about doing it, and that's the driver? Which one are they equal?
The third one I thought of while you were saying that is definitely impact and legacy. And I think that's a positive one too. So I got 2 positives and 1 negative. I think positive wins for sure. I think anytime you're dealing off of like negative inputs and you're just fighting that every day, it helps. Like, I think that's a one contributing factor. It shouldn't be your main contributing factor. I think it's something that I hold on to for sure. I always, not always, but I fall back on the pool house, like we've talked about. I fall back on having nothing and what that feeling was like and what it was like even going back to that pool house 10 years later and walking up the driveway and seeing it and how that felt at my core to just have nothing. So that definitely drives me still to today. But I definitely think the more powerful driver is my daughter. I think the more positive driver is what are people going to say at my funeral? And what is my legacy going to be when I'm gone? How many people are going to show up? How much are they going to care? That is a big one for me, is thinking about what is my obituary going to say and who's going to be there at the end and how long will I be remembered?
Well, one of the things that I've done, and behind me, there's a book called Pro Mindset. It it starts with the idea that you have to rewrite your story to get to a different place. People that are stuck in the past, it's very difficult to grow when you're stuck in the past. Everybody has a part of their story they need to rewrite because they're not proud of it. They were in it's the most embarrassing moment, dumbest decision they ever made. They got fired because they didn't take care of their business, or it might not have been any fault of theirs anyway. But it's like, if I call it the backpack factor, if you put all that stuff in your backpack, you can't even carry it all. So you got to rewrite it. So that's a little bit why I asked you about going back to being 17, because you have a very positive energy about the whole experience, where most people wouldn't. You don't hold a grudge to your dad. You're not poor me. Oh my God, I was homeless. No, you're like, hey, it's just something happened. I had a good friend group. My dad was dope, and I'm good.
Yeah.
A whole different energy. So in some ways, you've already rewritten your story, which sets you free to be able to go create and do whatever you want to do. Where lion's share of people, when they have that kind of adversity, they don't rewrite their story. They're stuck in their story. Thoughts on that?
I think that's a blessing that I've had of being raised by parents that were all in on me, from the first time I showed up on this earth till that moment. I really think that's a huge credit to them. I think some people are not blessed with parents like that. And so from a young age, if you're imprinted with not having that support around you and not having that self belief, I can imagine then it's very easy to look back and have that negative mentality of like, wow, the world's got me down. Like people have had it so much harder than me. I think I really looked at that as a blessing in my life. Once I graduated from Berkeley and I got out of there with no debt, and then I got a great job, and then I started building companies, like I would have not done any of that had I gone off to college and done whatever I was going to do on that other path. So to me, looking back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, now 25 years on that was the greatest moment of my life. And it also allows you then to take on all the other losses, because the reality is we're just going to keep getting punched in the face. Throughout our life, there's always going to be something hard. And it's actually always going to get harder. So I think then the little blips along the road become nothing, because you've already been through so much that the little stuff gets easy and the big stuff's still going to be hard, right? We talked about like loss is always going to be hard, big moments of divorce or whatever you're going to face. The loss of someone close to you, I think, is the hardest thing that we go through. But yeah, I think, especially in entrepreneurship or in sports or in golf, everything we've talked about so far, it all comes down to how do you bounce back? Every single time, how do you bounce back? So, yeah, I would encourage, I don't know. I don't know how you build that. Like if you've been through hard shit in your life, I don't know how you build that, but you just got to go through it to get to the other side. And the more we can face it head on, the better off we're going to be.
Well, think about in golf, hit a bad shot, you're stuck behind a tree, and you could end up with a triple bogey, or you could take your medicine and maybe get a bogey. And it's like different people respond to that adversity differently. Some people have this like miraculous kind of mindset that, there's a 1 in a million chance you can get it through the trees and you think you're the one, even though Tiger and those guys couldn't do it. And I think people do that in life too, and one of the things about resiliency is you gotta see it as for you, and you've got to always be forward minded, because you woke up today, bank account didn't look like what you were hoping it would look like, your investments are down, hey, even your home value's gone down. Hey, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
It is what it is.
100%. That golf analogy of being behind the tree actually made me think of something. There was a golfer named Grayson Murray who actually unfortunately took his own life. And it was a big moment and a time when I was starting a mental health business. But I listened to a podcast of his that he did. They published it a month after he had passed away. And his mentality in that was, I hit a terrible shot behind a tree, just like you just said. And what an amazing opportunity that is to show off, to create the incredible outcome where I slice it behind the tree, I hook it around, I hit it to 2 feet, and everyone around me is like, how the hell did he do that? Like I hit it in a bunker and then I can it from the bunker. What an amazing opportunity that is to show off. And then when we talk about the analogy to life, I love that, because now every time on the golf course, I think about that. But I also think about it in business day to day when things go sideways and like you find a solution and you find a way to pull it off. Like how amazing that is to have that opportunity to find the solution, to overcome that obstacle, to hit it out of the woods and knock it to 2 feet, and to create that wow moment around you, both internally and externally, to get that validation. I thought that was the coolest thing ever that I heard from a golfer.
Did you ever cross paths with Aaron Rodgers at Cal Berkeley?
No, physically. I mean, we were around the same time, right?
Yeah.
We had an incredible football team while I was there. But yeah, I got to see his game at USC where he completed like 24 straight passes, and I think we were top 3 in the country at that point. I just started watching his documentary, and it's given me a lot greater appreciation for him as a person. I've never had the chance to meet him.
Where's that at? Is that on Netflix?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
I think it's a worthwhile watch. Yeah. As a football fan and Aaron Rodgers fan, he's gotten so much just bad, right? In the like broad scale press across the country. And I think it gives him an opportunity to really tell it from his side of the story. And me as an observer and a fan of sports, again, like back to the appreciation for guys that do it on another level. He's one of those guys. He's definitely wired different and lives life on his terms, and he gets judged for it. But who cares? Because he's doing it his way and he's living up to his full potential every single day. And he's committed to that. I have a ton of respect for that.
Well, one thing that was interesting is they played the Ravens at the end of the season for who was going to get to go to the playoffs. And obviously the Steelers won. And in the post-game interview, The sideline reporter goes, "Hey, ask him the dumbest question I've ever, I mean, just dumb. Okay, is this your last game?"
Yeah.
He just won a game. He just got the crap beat out of him a couple times, and he bit his lip. He took a breath. He paused, and he did not say what he was thinking, because what he was thinking was something along the lines of, "How are you an idiot for asking me this question at this time?" And so I think one of the things that professional athletes get the opportunity to do over and over and over again is in one of the most, like, celebrated moments or vulnerable moments where they're the, or they're the failure, epic failure. They get they have a mic in their face, and sometimes they get asked crazy questions. And to be able to regulate, self-control, give grace, and not really speak what they think, where most people would fly off the handle and they would speak what they think.
Yeah. And when I see any celebrity or anyone in the public eye get judged for something they say or something they do, I chuckle because I think about it from a very human element of these are individuals that have to regulate 90% of their life. And so you catch them in a bad moment or you catch them on a bad day and you get the wrong response, like, God, that's tough to judge. Yeah. I I didn't see the interview with Rogers, but um I
It
can
was
imagine
real.
he does his best to hold back in a lot of situations.
No, it was a teach tape. It was something you would want to show in PR that, hey, you know what? Here's the circumstances. Here's what just happened. You get asked this kind of question. So think about being in business. Somebody walks in your office or calls you up on the phone and complains about something, and they have no idea what you've been dealing with.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and you could tell them to go fly a kite or you can be composed. What is going to be, you talked about it, so I'm going to ask you. I hope this happens like decades down the road, but at your funeral, what do you hope your daughter says in her eulogy of you?
You're gonna make me cry. He was my biggest fan. I hope that's what it is. Like that he was always there, always had my back, always lifted me up, and was always my biggest fan.
And what did your dad do to you? Same
That was
thing.
it. Yeah, that was it. I mean, that's all I reference back to. I don't think about my daughter was asking me to tell a story about my dad the other night. We were doing bath together, and she said, "Tell me about a story with Grandpa Marty." And all of my memories are us playing in our yard, all of them. Playing basketball, playing baseball, playing tennis, and just being out there together. That's it. I remember the trips. I remember like, some of the time at home laying around the couch, but then my mind immediately goes to us playing sports together, and so that's why I was out there at 8 a.m. this morning with Sienna.
Well, there's so many things that you've accomplished and experienced in your lifetime, and there's so many more hours that you spent with your parents than just playing in the yard and playing in the driveway and so on and so forth. But the only ones you remember are the ones that you have an emotional connection to, because you can't remember them all. And so that made an emotional impact on you. Being able to play with your pops, shoot hoops in the driveway or whatever it was. And so you're recreating your positive experiences from your childhood with your daughter,
100%.
which is super cool.
I remember the first time I legitimately beat him in basketball too. Like the one time where I knew he was actually trying and I had him. I was like 12. I have a bet with my wife right now that I'll be able to beat my daughter in a foot race when I'm 60. And everyone says, no freaking way. No way. And it's probably true, right? She's going to be like 22. She's going to be fast. I don't know. We'll see. But it drives me really hard because I want to have that mentality for the next 20 years of like, I want to be able to keep up with her and do all those things. And so I know I need to go out and run sprints. I know I need to be training. I know I need to be staying young. I know I need to do it because as soon as I stop, then I'm losing it. I'm losing those opportunities to share with her for as many years as I can extend it and make it happen.
I have 3 kids and a daughter and 2 boys, and I made it a point with my boys that I didn't want them to beat me. And then I tore my ACL playing hoops. And when I came back, you know, really about a year, 14 months later, because even though you're healthy, 9 months, you're not really healthy.
Yeah.
I couldn't compete with them anymore. They had just exploded. It was that age, 13, 14, and they looked at me like I was an old washed up rag. I mean, it was like, "Dad, what happened to you?" And I'm thinking, "I'm feeling good
Yeah.
because I just ACL fixed," but it happened that fast. My superiority on the athletic fields disappeared during that time. So, hey, is there anything you would like to add? that we didn't talk about that you wanted to share?
I just greatly appreciate the opportunity to have the conversation. I appreciate you, Craig. No one's steered a conversation like this the way that you have, and just I really appreciate everything you touched on, and feels really good.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening to Pro Mindset today. Time flew. Matt Stern, they can look in the show notes, but where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm running a business today called MyStart Health, and that's my everyday. I'm all in on that business. You can also find me at the Stern Group. The Stern Group's always been my consultancy and growth marketing agency that I've run for the last 15 years. Yeah, that's on Instagram, all the platforms you can think of, on LinkedIn. Very responsive there. And like I said, happy to connect with men or women going through this phase of life or trying to start something new that just need someone who's been there before, and a heart or an ear or whatever you need. I want to be that person in the world and want to be making an impact with people that need that support.
So, everybody, if you are looking for some expertise on how to get started, how to get out of the blocks, starting blocks, how to go from zero to your next level, check him out.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for being on Pro Mindset.